opening announcements. First, welcome to our guests. We have many. Usually I just like to raise your hands, but I can see there's quite a few guests tonight. And it's, I guess, some of your friends and the speakers. I'm also guessing that some of you saw it on Facebook. Anybody see it on Facebook? Okay. Anybody see it in the newspapers? Okay. And anybody see it on the announcement that comes by email weekly from the town? Okay, good. So we know that we're getting the word out. That's the important thing. Okay. Our next meeting will be here at Shady Rest on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. on April the 28th. That's our usual meeting. It's the fourth Monday of the month. But we're not meeting in May because they're using the hall for something else. So we're always welcome. We always like to get people out and see what we're talking about. The local history is so important. People move into town, they don't know what has actually occurred here. The very beginnings of our government and such happened, a lot of it right here. The British marched right down Park Avenue, chasing after our guys. And our guys are retreating into the mountains, called the Battle of the Shorter Hills, because the Watchung Mountains are taller than the hills over at Plains-Fanwood Country Club area, where the other command post was. Some people don't even realize this. So, at any rate, we almost lost the war in 1777, June 25th. It was that close, they almost captured George Washington. They faked a retreat, he comes out of the mountains, and they signal him to get back in the mountains, and he makes it just in time. So, although it's a stalemate battle, Washington considers it a win, because he doesn't get captured, you know. And most of the British cannons ended up in our Ashbrook Swamp, because they were lured over there. They never got to the front of the battle, and there's actually quicksand in that swamp as well, which people don't realize, because people don't realize we're only 8 miles to the bay, so you get salt domes out there. You know, there's a lot of interesting things that go on out at that swamp. So, this battle was rather important. We're only beginning to understand the importance of it. So, this is why we appreciate the local history. Okay, the museum, by the way, will be closed this Sunday because it's Easter. So, you know, it'll be reopening in May, the first Sunday of the month, in May from 2 until 4. So, and thank you to those who brought refreshments. I understand Savory Selections made the, yeah.
No,
and,
no, bite me, desserts.
Jill. Oh, I'm sorry, Jill.
Yeah.
He needs you. And so they made some of the selection factors, so enjoy after we're on the program. All right. Marie, do you want to comment on local history and this week?
No, but I'd like to know, I had suggested that each month I come and give you 3 or 4 historical facts. But our executive board wasn't sure that you would like that. But if you think that you would like that, each month I would come with 3 or 4 facts about Scotch Plains, his history or family's history. Do you think you'd like that? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Vice President Connie, you want to introduce our speaker, please?
David, could you ask people to shut off their cell phones?
Oh yeah. Don't forget, put your cell phone to silent on the volume so it doesn't go ringing in the middle of her presentation. Excellent thought. Okay. Oh, good. Grab it at the top. Right.
Hello? Is it working? Oh, good. Well, welcome everybody. My goodness. This is a wonderful turnout, and this is really local history, and I'm very excited that we're having this program, and Jill has been a wonderful person to coordinate and organize and get this small setup for tonight. We had to cancel, as you know, because of the snowstorm, and tonight I feel like we should be handing out fans. So who would know what a month could do? Anyway, I am going to let Jill start the program because we have 4 presenters. Jill Jackson Jones, Kevin Eldridge, Nora Dunn, and Demira Destra. And I'm going to remind Jill that she she has to tell what this grant is from. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. So nice to see so many people here interested in our history. So good evening. Thank you all for coming out. I've already said that. Today's presentation, The Legacy of Kramer Manor, is about sharing stories, memories, and impact of a place that really meant so much to our community and many of us that are here today. We'll be digging into old documents, photos, and tales from the past just to see how Kramer Manor really shaped who we are, our lives, and why it's so important to keep this history alive and to continue to preserve the history. You'll also be hearing from some special guests, like myself, have a real personal connection to this history and the neighborhood and are so passionate about preserving our history for future generations. And just to keep things moving along, we will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation so that we can get through the presentation, if it's okay, if you can save your questions until the end. All right, but in the meantime, we are going to bring up our first very special guest, Demira Destra.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Demira Destra, and I'm the granddaughter of Corin Green and the late Elwood Green. My grandfather Elwood was recognized as a patriarch of Kramer Manor and a vital force in preserving the community's history and legacy. His life reflected a deep commitment to faith, family, and progress. He served faithfully as a deacon at Emmanuel Baptist Church on Lincoln Avenue in Scotch Plains, a cornerstone of spiritual and cultural life within the community. Born in Virginia, my grandfather's connection to Kramer Manor began in his youth through frequent visits to his Aunt Cora and Papa John, who lived in Kramer Manor. These early experiences shaped his sense of belonging and responsibility to the community. He later grew up in Westfield, New Jersey, where he began building his life, including starting a family before eventually relocating to Scotch Plains. The owners of Kramer Realties, Inc., Mr. Harry Kramer and his brother, Mr. Hiram Kramer, were Jewish immigrants from Russia. Their family resided on or around the cul-de-sac on Roosevelt Avenue. It was said that Mr. Harry Kramer's niece, Goldie Cook, who was married to a black man, John Cook, or who inspired him to develop this all-black community because she was disowned by her father. John and Goldie were a beautiful family of 5. On June 5th, 1924, the Kramer Realty Company purchased a 35-acre tract of land in the borough of Fanwood, within the township of Scotch Plains, from Frank E. Woodruff. This land would later become known as Kramer Manor.
Sorry about that.
Historical maps of Kramer Manor reveal that each parcel was carefully divided, numbered, and documented. These records allow property ownership to be traced back to Mr. Kramer and to many of the early black families who purchased land there, as noted in newspaper articles dating as far back as 1929. My grandfather often shared stories about the early days of Kramer Manor. One of those stories was his Aunt Cora, who was in a relationship with an Italian immigrant, Disvanvitsa Grande, known as Papa John. At a time when interracial relationships were widely unaccepted, their partnership was both rare and significant, just as Goldie Kramer and John Cook. Despite the social challenges of that era, they built a life together in Kramer Manor, reflecting a quiet strength and independence that stood out in those times. Papa John had a close friendship with Mr. Kramer, the developer of the land. Together, they played an important role in making home ownership possible for many black families. Papa John's home on Lincoln Avenue was not only a place of business, but also a family hub. Living there with Papa John were several of my grandfather's relatives on his mother's side, including Aunt Cora, her son Robert Davis, Jeanette Gordon, Mary Rowan, Billy Rowan, and Coraline Rawway. Together, they formed a close-knit household that was deeply connected to the growth of Kramer Manor. Although there is no definitive explanation for how the streets were named, residents researching the community's history have identified two common themes: American presidents and members of the Kramer family. The layout of the neighborhood reflects this rich history and identity, with streets named after former U.S. presidents, such as Jefferson, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and Wilson Avenues, as well as streets honoring members of the Kramer family, including Evelyn Place and Goldie Place, named after Hiram's daughters.
This is the original map of Kramer Manor. Everybody knows where McGinn School is. Up where McGinn School is, there was a street over there called Wilson Street. So if you, right next to McGinn, there's one house that sits weird. It's like facing the wrong way. It's facing like the school. And that house was one of the houses on Wilson Avenue. Now, where McGinn School is where the Jewish temple was supposed to be. So what happened was, Mr. Lee, Bill Lee, Bob Lee, that family. So the Lee family, the hierarchy, the grandmother lived on Trenton, but there was other relatives that lived right where McGinn School is, and they owned 3 parcels of land. Bob Lee had just became a police officer in Scotch Plains, and he was walking around moping in the hallways. As he's walking and moping, somebody stopped and said, "What's the matter?" He says, "They want me to sell my house for a penny on the dollar. I don't think it's fair." And whoever that was, we don't know who that person was. They said, "We will look into it for you." So they came back to him and said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." Because now McGinn was supposed to be where Temple Israel is. They said, "We will bring the school up here on the hill. You got more funding for the school than you did for the Jewish temple. The budget was larger." So he said, "If you can get all your family members to sell at once, all 3 parcels, we'll give you the money." You know, so he thought that was fair. The problem was one of the cousins didn't want to sell. So now the one cousin doesn't want to sell. And Mr. Lee's back. And Bob, when he was telling me the story, I was dying laughing. Right? So he said, I wanted to shake him, you know. So now what happened was they finally talked him into selling. And when he sold it, the grandmother had to get involved to make him sell the land. She had to go do one of the pointing the finger thing. So he got him to sell, and that's how McGinn School came to be where it is, and Temple Israel came to be where it is.
The layout of the neighborhood reflects this rich history and identity, with streets named after former U.S. presidents, such as Jefferson, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and Wilson Avenues, as well as streets honoring members of the Kramer family, including Evelyn Place and Goldie Place, named after Hiram's daughters. Together, these names help preserve the legacy of those who contributed to the development of Kramer Manor. Wilson Ave became McGinn School. This advertisement for Kramer Manor introduced people to an all-Black community and the opportunities it represented. Mr. Kramer offered Black families the chance to own homes in a suburban neighborhood, rather than renting in the city, with plots originally selling for $250. My grandfather recalled that every weekend, Mr. Kramer would travel from New York, walking from the train station to Aunt Cora's home on Lincoln Avenue. There, he and Papa John would sit together, often sharing wine, while Mr. Kramer spread out a large map of the property. families would gather in that home to purchase land, selecting from parcels carefully divided in numbers.
So, talking with Mr. Green, I talked to Mr. Green a lot. Talking with Mr. Green, what Mr. Green said that on Lincoln Avenue, if you did, like she said, if you want a parcel, if you wanted a house, you had to go in, go downstairs, and he would show you the lot that you're gonna get. So this is the only basement they would pick the lot. Also, Mr. Green would tell me, Mr. Green was one of the, Green still run that church over there. Mr. Green said that sometimes he just didn't have the money for the mortgage, for the church. So sometimes they would give $1, $2, whatever they had. And then I think it was 1960, in the early 60s, he said Mr. Green got a letter in the mail from a real estate place saying he owed $200 to own the church outright. He said he didn't know where that $200 was coming. He said he didn't know. They found a way, they got the $200, and they owned it. They got ownership of that church.
Numerous families from Westfield, including people my grandfather knew, brought land during this period, although some later lost their property due to taxes. My grandfather also purchased property directly from Mr. Kramer for approximately $500 and built his own home. He would make payments in small amounts, often giving Mr. Kramer whatever he had after church services. These are pictures of members of the Kramer family. Hiram, Bertha, and Harry, Goldie and her daughter Stella, Evelyn, and the Cook family.
And before Mr. Green passed, Jill, what was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago, I got a call and I was coming from work and I was dirty from work and everything. And here I am, we're getting ready to meet the daughter and stuff from Mr. Kramer, Mary Kramer.
So a few years ago, we were able to connect, and actually it was through, her name was Michelle. She's a
Michelle.
librarian, right, Scotch Plains Library. And she did some digging research, and she was able to connect us with Stella's daughter.
Daughter, right?
Mm-hmm. And it was through that family, we were able to have Zoom calls, and they actually met Mr. Green also, because Mr. Green had a good recognition for remembrance of Stella as well.
Yep.
So that was pretty cool, and they were the ones that gave us all these pictures.
Thanks to the vision of Mr. Kramer, African-American families in this part of Scotch Plains gained opportunities for progress, particularly in home ownership. His efforts enabled families to purchase land, build homes, and establish roots, fostering stability, creating generational wealth, and laying a strong foundation for future generations to thrive. The Lee family was the first to move into Kramer Manor in 1929. Their property on Wilson Street was eventually sold to make way for McGinn School. Within these few blocks, a close-knit community took root, where neighbors formed strong bonds and cherished memories were shared amongst residents. Other residents of Kramer Manor worked in a variety of professions, including plumbing, electrical work, construction, education, child care, law, and social work. My grandfather was a skilled bricklayer. He built his own home on Roosevelt Avenue in Fanwood and also helped neighbors construct and maintain their homes. My grandfather's journey remains an inspiration, and my grandmother, Corey Green, continues to carry forward their family's strength, love, and legacy, together embodying resilience, faith, and the power of community. Thank you.
Also, just want to mention the Green family, the Johnson family. They built a lot of the homes in Scotch Plains and helped build a lot of the homes. A lot of the people that had homes built here in Jersey land helped with building homes in Kramer Manor. So there was, it wasn't a money changing hands. It was favors going back and forth. So the favors going back and forth is what built Jersey land and what built Kramer Manor. Jersey land, we're in Jersey land right now. We're in Jersey land. So Jersey land was the first area where a lot of minorities came, right? So this area is Jersey land. Downtown, down Front Street in Scotch Plains, down Front Street, that area is downtown. That was another area. And Kramer Manor, where we live, is the third area. Now, this area, they put a lot of minorities here because the ground was low. It would flood a lot. It would flood a lot, so they put them here. When Harry Kramer bought that property over there at Kramer Manor, there was a town meeting and someone was really upset. They said that this land should not be for people of color. This land is too good, it's too high. You should say the high land for white people. That's on record. That's on record at one of the meetings. A detective said that. So that's the Kramer Manor. That's how the Kramer Manor got there. And when they got Kramer Manor there, everybody was paying sewage tax, but there was no sewage, there was no pipes, nothing ran. They did that for years. And then a coalition between the Jersey land people helped, because they were in the same boat. Jersey land people helped the Kramer Manor people to get roads and proper sewage things done. So they're paying utility tax and didn't have any utilities. They did that for years.
So these pictures came from descendants of the Hadley family. They were on 35 Trenton Avenue. I remember the house, because I live right next door. I remember the bushes. Like this gentleman, he built his own home.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I was saying this house is on Trenton Avenue. I live next door, actually, and the current house is very similar. But Mr. Hadley, I remember his overalls growing up, because he was always building. He built his own home, right, and walked from Kramer Manor.
Now also, Mr. Hadley and behind his house is where they used to have church service. So they had two churches, always seemed like always there. There was one Mr. Hadley had, and if you're standing Kramer Manor, to the right side of the park, down where we do the Kramer Manor reunion at, that was another church down there. I'm not saying churches, these were like little barns and shacks. But that's where the two churches came from. That's in Kramer Manor.
So one day, the descendant of Mr. Hadley was standing in front of my neighbor's home, and she told me, she asked him, hi, can I help you? And that's when he said, well, this used to be my grandfather's home. And they connected, and he gave us these pictures. Yeah, it's really cool, right? All right, next slide. So we're going to move on. Next, we have another special guest. Before I do that, I want to recognize the Green family who's here today. The long-standing Green family, Deacon Green, who we've been talking about, his wife, his daughters, his son, and grandkids are here as well. So I just want to acknowledge them. And we also have the Watkins family. We're going to get to
And they all
another.
can sing too. When you want to hear some music.
And we also have the Watkins family here too. The Watkins is another long-standing family in Kramer Manor. There's a lot of y'all, right? All right, next we're going to introduce Nora Jones. Nora Jones Dunn was born in a family of 13 children of Clinton and Evelyn, a long-standing Kramer Manor family, arriving to Kramer Manor in 1928. Her roots run deep in the community, and a graduate of Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School in 1961, her academic journey began at Union County College, where she pursued a liberal arts education and later earned an associate's degree in gerontology.
Continuing her commitment to learning, she achieved a Bachelor's of Arts in Africana Studies from Rutgers College, followed by a master's degree in Rutgers School of Communication, Library, and Information Science. Additionally, she completed a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Seton Hall, further broadening her expertise. She also served as Chief of Medical Information Section at both the Lions VA Hospital and the East Orange VA Medical Center, making significant contributions to veterans healthcare and information management. In addition to her distinguished civilian career, Nora is recognized as a proud U.S. Army veteran who served during the Vietnam era. Her military experience exemplifies her dedication to the country and community, and her experiences as a veteran have deeply shaped her commitment to supporting fellow service members and their families. Beyond her professional accomplishments, she also held the honor of serving as former chaplain for the American Veterans Association. Please join me all in welcoming the esteemed individual whose lifelong commitment to education in our community inspires all of us.
I want to thank you all for being here. And I want to tell you what life was like for the early black families who settled in Kramer Manor by sharing the story of my family, my parents, and my humble beginnings. And I'm going to focus on the early 20s, or the late 20s up through the 50s. My parents were a part of the great migration of blacks who came to New Jersey from the Jim Crow South in search of a better life. They came from Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. In 1921, at the age of 19, my father, Clinton Jones, left Lincolnton, Georgia to escape Jim Crow and came to Newark, New Jersey. He said there were two ways to get out of Lincolnton, Georgia, by Greyhound or Bloodhound. He was unschooled and couldn't read, but after arriving in New Jersey, he did construction work by day, and he attended adult school at night to learn to read and write. My mother, Evelyn Sweat, was born in Panama City, Florida. She came to Newark, New Jersey in 1923 with her parents, Doc and Abby Sweat, and two siblings, Daniel Charles and Elizabeth. My mother was raised by religious parents who, and their parents were very active in the church they attended in Newark. When Kramer Manor was established in 1924, it was advertised in the New York Amsterdam News as an ideal colored development. My grandparents, Doc and Abby Sweat, purchased lots from Kramer Realty and left Newark in 1928 to settle in Kramer Manor. Family friends, the William Lee family, also migrated from Panama City, Florida to Newark in 1923 and later moved to Kramer Manor. There were only 5 houses in Kramer Manor when the Sweats and the Lees arrived. Doc Sweat erected a 3-room cabin on Jefferson Avenue, 1 bedroom, a kitchen, and a living room that also served as a bedroom. Abby Sweat was very active, and she had been very active in the church and as a church missionary leader in Newark. But since there was no church at the time in Kramer Manor, my grandmother started having Sunday school for the neighborhood children in her living room. And in warm weather, they would meet under the shade of a large oak tree on Jefferson Avenue. 1928 was the same year that my father, Clinton Jones, came to Kramer Manor from Nutley, New Jersey, with his uncle Ellis Leverett to build a house on Washington Avenue on land purchased from the Kramer Realty. While they were building their house on Washington Avenue, my grandmother and my mother Evelyn would prepare and deliver meals to the Leverets and their nephew, Clayton Jones. It was there that my parents met. After a 2-year dating courtship, my parents, Clinton and Evelyn, got married in 1932. They lived with Uncle Leverett for several years before moving out on their own to a house up the street on Evelyn Street. In 1935, my father invited his younger brothers, George and Clinton Jones, to leave Lincolnton, Georgia, and come to New Jersey, and they could stay with him until they got on their feet. My grandmother, Abby Sweat, stayed in contact with the church she attended in Newark, and she would invite the church from Newark out to Fanwood, to Kramer Manor, to have service under the shade trees. Soon, my grandparents purchased an old red barn across the street and held service in the loft of the barn. This was the beginning of the Church of the Living God, and she was the first pastor. In 1937, my Uncle Charlie convinced his best friend, Arthur Warren, to move to New Jersey from Lincolnton, Georgia, and he also stayed with the Joneses until he could get on his feet. Arthur Warren was a young, spirited man, and he received a call to preach while attending the church service in the Red Barn. He became the assistant pastor to Abby Sweat, and later the pastor of the Church of the Living God, which is now Warren Temple, Church of the Living God. When the barn became shaky and unsafe, the Leverets allowed them to have service in his home on Washington Avenue. Years later, after my grandfather, Doc Sweat, died, my aging grandmother, Abby Sweat, left the 3-room cabin and went back to Newark to live with her son, my Uncle Daniel Charles. And in 1944, when her health began to fail, Arthur Warren became pastor of the Church of the Living God, and he started a building fundraiser for a church building to replace the Red Barn and having service in homes. My father, Clinton Jones, and his brothers, George and Charlie Jones, were very active in the church. My father was a trustee, George was the deacon, and my Uncle Charlie was the musician. And the 3 brothers had 30 children among them. And so I had many first cousins, and we had a big choir that sang in the church. There were 2 churches in Kramer Manor, the Church of the Living God on Evelyn Street and the Emmanuel Baptist Church on Lincoln Avenue. The Lees, who lived on Trenton Avenue, also had religious services in their garage. Early church meetings were held in homes, under shade trees, in barns, under tents, and finally in church buildings. In 1944, after my grandmother returned to Newark to live with my Uncle D.C., my parents moved into the cabin on Jefferson Avenue with their growing family of 6 kids. My father, now a builder, added 2 more bedrooms to the cabin to accommodate the growing family. Now, there were 3 bedrooms. My parents' room, a girl's room, and a boy's room, the living room and the kitchen. I was the baby, and the ages of my older siblings were 11, 10, 8, 6, and 5. My parents had 13 children. 5 were born in the 30s, 3 in the 40s, and 5 in the 50s. My siblings and I grew up in Kramer Manor in Scotch, Plains-Fanwood when segregation was legal. I will tell you some of my memories of living in Kramer Manor during the 40s and 50s before the Civil Rights Amendment was passed in 1965, when black homeowners faced racial discrimination. May I see a show of hands of those who were born in the 30s in this room? Under 30s? How many of you were born in the 40s? And in the 50s? Okay? So we were all born at a time before the Civil Rights Amendment. We all grew up when segregation was legal. So we all understand what life was like at that time. There were no street lights or paved roads in our neighborhood as in the white community. We had dirt roads. When it rained, it would be so muddy that the car tires and even your feet would get stuck in the mud. The conditions in our 5-room cabin were substandard. There was no sewer system in Kramer Manor, no toilet to flush. We had an outhouse. My father built a bench with 2 toilet seats, one for the adults and one for the young ones. Slop buckets were used in winter when it was too cold to use the outhouse. We had no electricity. We used kerosene lamps. In the 40s, we had no indoor plumbing, no kitchen faucet. There was a spring on Trenton Avenue near the Kramer Manor Park. And my 91-year-old sister, who now is in Elizabeth, she said that she and my oldest sister, Rosa May, had the daily chore immediately upon coming home from school to take 2 buckets to get water from the spring. She said that after the spring was condemned, it was replaced by a spigot down on Martin Avenue, more than a block away. I remember hauling buckets of water from Martin Avenue to Jefferson Avenue for cooking, bathing, and laundry. I did that myself. We washed clothes with a washboard and hung them on the lines to dry in the fresh air. We didn't have dryer sheets. My father, who was illiterate when he left Georgia, had learned to read and write and could read now and interpret blueprints. He had become a skilled builder. He had built the outhouse, the chicken coop, and even a coal bin. My mother was more than eager now for a more modern house. To persuade my father to begin house construction, she went to the J.D. Loizic Lumber Company in Plains-Fanwood and had a truckload of cinder blocks delivered to Jefferson Avenue. After some difficulty and persistence with the Scotch Plains Township, my father was finally granted a building permit, and in 1950, the construction of our 9-room house was underway, with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The Township of Scotch Plains was hesitant to provide public utilities in Kramer Manor. During construction of the new house, without help from the Township of Scotch Plains, my father had to dig a water line 75 feet from Evelyn Street to the house on Jefferson Avenue. He had to dig 3 feet deep to prevent the pipes from freezing. He had the help of his future son-in-law, David Haskins, and my oldest brother, Clinton Jones Jr. My sister was engaged when she was a senior in high school, and of course her fiance helped my father do the digging. After the water line was connected to the house as it was being built, my siblings and I were relieved of having to walk more than a block down to Martin Avenue to get water. In 1954, 8 siblings, including myself, enjoyed the move into the new 9-room house that had electricity and indoor plumbing. 3 of my siblings had married and left home. I was 11 years old, and 2 of my siblings had not yet been born. They were born in 55 and 57. Now, what are my memories of living in the 5-room cabin? I remember how we sawed and axed the logs for the kitchen stove. A potbelly stove was used to heat the cabin. It burned coal. Father constructed a large coal bin. The coal would be delivered and poured into the coal bin, and we would climb up and sit on top of the coal bin for fun and for social gathering. We had no electricity, no refrigerator. We had an ice box. It had a drip pan. The iceman delivered blocks of ice, and we'd have to empty the drip pan occasionally. We had a milkman, a Dugan's bread man. The fish man came on Friday, and on Saturday morning in the summertime, a watermelon man would come around and give us samples of watermelon. We had a garden, collard greens, kale, tomatoes, cucumbers. We had cherry tree in the yard, 2 peach trees, an apple tree, and a grapevine. My mother was an excellent cook. We would pick apples and peaches from the trees in the yard, and she would make apple pies, peach cobbler, and she would make grape jelly. We also always had jars of grape jelly with a little wax on the top. We had a chicken coop, and every Easter around this time, a delivery would come of maybe 3 or 4 dozen baby chicks. I thought they were pets, but they were really for growing up, and we had fresh eggs and fresh killed chickens. During the summer, we would get up early before the sun came up to go blackberry picking in the woods behind where McGinn School is located. Mother would make blackberry dumpling, and she would also make ice cream. And we would take turns turning the churner and licking the ice cream blades. We also picked blackberries, cherries, and dandelions for Mr. Munro, who lived on Trenton Avenue. He was the neighborhood winery. Mr. Munro's Hill was a popular spot for sleigh rides and bike rides. Now, my memories of the Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School in the 40s and 50s. Since we grew up, although segregation was legal, the schools were integrated, but at times we were treated differently. Many times we were the only black student in the classroom. Sometimes we were discouraged, told we were not college material. We were ignored sometimes and called names, referred to as you people, and we were made to feel uncomfortable and shame. My cousin Joseph Clinton, he was encouraged to fight because there was a song they would sing called Old Black Joe, and they pointed him and made him be encouraged to fight. Snowstorms were often 2 feet high. The Scotch Plains-Fanwood fire stations would sound an alarm to signal that schools were closed. We didn't have phones, so we had to listen to the early morning fire alarm in order to know that there was no school. Kindergarten through 5th grade, the grammar school was at school number 4 on LeGrand Avenue in Fanwood. Our school day began with the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. 6th grade, at school number 3 on Plainfield Avenue in this Shady West area, it was where we met other black kids from this black neighborhood who lived in this Shady West area known as Jersey Land. In 1955 and 1956, the 7th and 8th grades were held at the high school on Park Avenue. There were half sessions with the upper grades, while the new high school on Westville Road was being built. It was a 1-mile walk for the Kramer Manor students up Martin Avenue, through the town of Fanwood to the Park Avenue High School. We had no bus service. We were not allowed to ride the school bus. It was off limits for the colored children in Kramer Manor. Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School on Westville Road, I attended from 1957 to 1961. And I walked 2 miles to school from Jefferson Avenue. And I walked 2 miles home from school back to Jefferson Avenue. And many times I walked home in the dark, after school detention. We were disciplined at home. by getting beatings with a belt. It wasn't called child abuse. And some say that's what the kids need today. There were a few blacks in the high school graduating class. In 1951, there were 5 black high school graduates. Rosemary, my sister, and Bobby Lee were among the two of the 5 graduates. 1959, there were 4 black high school graduates. My brother Clinton Jones and Malcolm Nettingham Jr. were 2 of the 4 black high school graduates, along with Georgia McCauley. And in 1961, 11 black high school graduates, myself and Marcia, were 2 of the 11 black high school graduates. Growing up in Kramer Manor, the all-black enclave, we were a community. We could borrow a cup of sugar and egg or use your neighbor's phone, which was the old party system. I know a neighbor would come over and would always try to give my mother a nickel to use the phone, but my mother refused. We looked out for each other, we helped each other. My father was the barber for the neighborhood. Miss Johnson was the hairdresser. Miss Maddie's candy store on Lincoln Avenue around the corner. She had squirrel nuts, Mary Jane's, Tootsie Rolls, gum, pretzel sticks, and popsicles we could buy for a penny or 2. Uncle Buddy had a barbecue that he started on Thursday evening, and the aroma of chopped barbecue, pork ribs, and chicken just wafted through the neighborhood. Uncle George's hash was delicious, and this all happened before fast foods, before McDonald's and Burger King. Reverend Harvell on Washington Avenue sold sodas for a nickel, and every Friday night, the church kitchen was open before and after church service, where we could buy hot dogs, sodas, chicken and fish sandwiches, cake and pie slices. In conclusion, I want to call the surnames of early Kramer Manor residents: Colley, Sweat, Barnes, Hatley, Jones, Lee, Brown, Green, Davis, Edwards, Ware, Johnson, Woody, Smith, Watkins, Monroe, Morgan, Hannah. Growing up in Kramer Manor, we were neighbors, we were kinfolk, we were community. But in 1961, 31 years after the establishment of Kramer Manor, and 4 years before the Civil Rights Amendment, the Scotch Plains Township tried to displace the black residents of Kramer Manor and make it and turn it into an industrial zone. The complete account of their failed efforts is illustrated in a book compiled by my sister Annabelle Jones Hendricks, and the discussion of the book will be by Jill Jones. This is the book
One
of
thing
my
that,
sister
yes,
about the Kramer Manor.
and that book is actually available online as well. We do have some documentation that is also part of the book also, and we have a sample of the book if you want to take a look at it also. Harry Kramer continued to advocate for families. While Kramer Manor residents had ownership of their land, it did not offer equal access to opportunities, did it? Black families could buy the lots, but the federal government refused to support them when requesting mortgage loans. Of course, we followed the rules, bought the land, built the homes, and invested in the community, but yet were denied the federal tools that make suburban wealth possible for everyone. In 1941, and these are the actual letters, developer Harry Kramer wrote directly to President FDR explaining that black homeowners in Fanwood were systematically locked out of federal support solely because of race. And then eventually, on the next slide, go to the next slide. And eventually, the NAACP stepped in to attempt to advocate, sending a letter of concern to the Federal Housing Authority, as we're very excited to see a correspondence from Thurgood Marshall. He was a secretary at the time, which we all know is the Supreme Court's first African-American justice. So it's just nice to see us mentioned in a correspondence from him. This situation, exactly what historian Richard Rothstein documented in The Color of Law, and Kramer Manor fits the same pattern that he speaks about and references in this publication. So Kramer Manor, Fanwood is also mentioned in these two publications because of discrimination that our blacks experienced in our neighborhood. Sadly, Kramer Realties faced bankruptcy and eventually sold all of his land, and Harry Kramer passed away in 1955. So as Nora mentioned, her sister documented the Urban Renewal Project. Like I mentioned, I have a book here and there's some articles. And so she documented by bringing all of the articles into one publication. This publication documents a little known fact about black owners in Kramer Manor who fought against in 20th century urban renewal policies that threatened to dismantle the community. The book reveals how Kramer Manor residents, already burdened by decades of mortgage discrimination, redlining, and delayed municipality services, which Nora also talked about, were targeted by redevelopment plans as the local government claimed this neighborhood to be blighted. Anna highlights how residents organized and advocated and leveraged community strength from surrounding black neighborhoods, such as Jerseyland, to resist these efforts, eventually preserving the neighborhood and asserting their right to suburban home ownership. So as you can see, even our residents were very involved. We actually had what's called now dialogue circles, very similar to what Social Justice Matters facilitates today. And in the top article, there was a time where residents outside of Kramer Manor were actually throwing their trash into our neighborhood. So what did our residents do? They said, no, we're going to clean up our neighborhood. They came together to clean up Kramer Manor regardless. And Kevin, this is where you can speak about our leaders that came from Kramer Manor.
Excuse me for not standing up. I had back surgery, knee surgery, and I'm stiff from sitting. Oh, stop it, Mr. Donatelli.
Pick on me since I was little.
Well, our area, our neighborhood is well known for a lot of firsts, and a lot of famous people came from there. We had Jill's brother, Kyle. Kyle was the first black Fanwood police officer. Okay, Kyle's still a good friend of mine. He stands out, and actually his police career started in Fanwood, but Jill's father said, I ain't gonna waste him there, I'm gonna take him to Newark. So he took him to Newark. He took him to Newark and let him do a lot of undercover stuff, right? But now, Timmy Green, it was the second black Fanwood cop. Timmy's a great guy. Timmy is on the force now, okay? Also,
Last name Green.
Last name
That's where
Green.
that comes from.
Last name Green. Then we have Carol Britton. She was the, trying to remember for the AKA for the whole area, correct? That's
So, right,
Jill
so
Sorority.
Bigger Biomegan, it's my sorority, Alpha Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Bigger Biomegan of Plainfield. We were the first chapter in Union County, and Mrs. Britton from Kramer Manor was a charter member of that.
And her husband, Peter Britton, was the first black member of the SPF Board of Education. Also, we had Derek Character. Derek Character actually used to play with the Lakers. He used to play with the Lakers. He's from Seville Road. And we have the Lee brothers, right? Bob Lee, and now Bob Lee was my high school football coach. I had no idea how involved in the community he was. When Bob passed, the mayor of Fanwood actually said that was her consultant. So on matters of race that she did have, she had a question, that was the go-to guy, Bob Lee. All right. And Bill Lee. Bob Lee is the first black Scotch Plains police officer. And he actually told us a story about, what's the pool at next time?
Oh, Willowbrook.
Willowbrook, the Willowbrook pool. Mr. Schnitzer, who was the vice principal, well, when I was in school, he was the vice principal.
She was a principal.
Principal, well, Mr. Schnitzer was working at Willowbrook. And Mr. Willowbrook, yes, down Evelyn, at the end of Evelyn. You keep going straight, there's a pool right there. And a community pool. So Bob Lee was a police officer, he was patrolling. So Mr. Schnitzer said, let the kids from the neighborhood go in the pool. Well, Bob Lee said, well, I didn't like that because I couldn't swim. So Bob Lee said, he would let the kids go in the pool, but make sure they stay on the shallow end. Because he said if something happened, he couldn't save them. But that was a story that Mr. Lee had told, Bob Lee had told me. And also, if you don't know who Bob Lee is, Bob Lee started the IBF, the International Boxing Federation, right? Actually, when they lived up on, what's that where Keith lived, that street up there, Seville? That's it, though? Well, anyway, when Mr. Lee lived there, Don King, Mike Tyson, they would be over there frequently. They were over there a lot. And they actually, both Lee brothers were excellent athletes in college. Both of them they excelled.
So many of you might know Mr. Lee driving school.
Yeah.
Right? To allow our kids how to drive. So Collie Lee, one of the first settlers in Kramer Manor, was his grandmother.
Yeah.
So we didn't make that connection until, you know.
Yeah. Real quick, yeah. Where the Warren Temple sits right now, up on Evelyn Street, that lot was originally sold to Mr. Davis, Lamont Davis, Davis. The Davis family had that lot, and Mr. Kramer came back and said, I had a vision that I want a church overlooking the pasture. So he wanted a church overlooking green land. And he said, he told Mr. Davis, I'm going to give you the house on the corner next to the pond. So on the corner of Trenton Avenue, where the Davis's house used to be, it's a white brick house there now, that was a pond there. So Mr. Davis tried to start building over there. He got burnt out 3 times. So that's why that house on the corner is a brick house. That's why.
It's still a brick house.
It's still a brick house to this day. It's just painted white. But that's why that house on the corner is brick, because Mr. Davis got burnt out 3 times. Now, a lot of people got to remember between Edison and Westfield, a lot of people came. Now, if you go, what's the street that's by the lake, behind the pool, by my house, Long Road?
Broad Street?
Yeah, Broad Street. So if you come down Broad Street, there used to be a cut through from Broad Street that went straight into Kramer Manor. That's how a lot of people from Westfield, that's how they would go directly into Kramer Manor. On the corner of Broad Street and where the stop sign is right there, that used to be a store. No, Hetfield, yes. Hetfield and Broad, thank you, Thompson. Hetfield and Broad, there was a store there, and the store, behind the store, there was a path right into Kramer Manor. Yeah, that's how, because I asked Mr. Green, I'm like, wasn't that a long walk? He goes, nah, you get right there at the store, you go right behind the store, you walk through to the path, and the path will take you right to the Kramer Manor. Right?
The store was on the corner of the corner, the store was on the corner of
North Avenue?
North and Hetfield.
North and Hetfield? Oh my goodness. Why'd you put that picture there?
We're a little behind schedule.
Okay. So now, we started back, Derek Garrett started doing, on Lincoln Avenue, they started having, Lincoln Avenue had a get-together. They did it every year. They had a little block party. So from the block party at Lincoln Avenue, a couple years later, I was living in Rochester. I wasn't even back here. But I got together with a couple people from the neighborhood, and we started doing the Kramer Manor reunion. So every other year, we do the Kramer Manor reunion. So this is an off year this year. So next year, we'll be there again. People come from all over the country to Kramer Manor for this reunion. It's well attended. So you used to have the block parties back then. Then we have the Kramer Manor reunion. We just had a birthday celebration for the park.
Yes, yeah, to the place.
Yeah,
So
yes.
this year, just so everyone knows, our elders, I call them our elders, when they remember this. So up in Roosevelt Avenue in the cul-de-sac, there used to be a block party. It was the largest block party in Fanwood. The mayor used to come, and this is the only event that is in rotation for Black History Month on our local TV stations during Black History. You can even see Mayor Marr running around pregnant in the station. So the reunion kind of stemmed from that.
Yeah, so it went to the Greens, then they did it later on Lincoln, and now Jill has, I don't know who organized it, but Jill resurrected another one on Trenton Avenue for the current day residents. So the current day residents, we take all of Trenton Avenue, we block it off, I bring the music, and we're out there again.
I think some of you were there a couple years ago. You guys were there.
Yes. So the fact that we used to have that's something that we still drive. And we want to give people a chance to come back when they can, help when they can, and just to see each other.
Yes.
We're a very attached family.
Can we move on to the next one? Okay, so we'll go back one more.
That's actually pretty amazing.
So as a part of the Union County grant that we received for social justice matters, we were required to disseminate our history to the community. So what we did in 2021, it took us about 2 years to preserve this history through interviews. We also have documented the interviews and they're transcribed as well. We were able to do that through our grant. We actually did a premiere of our history in September 21 on Trenton Avenue, right? So we actually had a movie, you can find that on SJM's website. We had the mayors there, and this is everyone who attended, and it was just a wonderful event. In addition, we created a book with some of the history and some of the pictures. We can see an example here. I also want to note, this book, as well as Anna's book, is also in the Scotch Plains-Fanwood libraries as well. We're very happy for that. Next. And so, as Kevin mentioned, we celebrated 100 years in 2024. Huge celebration. As you can see, we had our rabbi there, we had our mayors there, and just a wonderful event to celebrate. Next. In addition, during this time, we were also featured, the National Realtors Association actually featured us in an article, in a blog online as well. So this is Farah. She came from the National Association of Realtors, and she interviewed members of our project team, and there's a blog online about our history.
Yeah, the National Association of Realtors put out our story about Kramer Manor all through the United States.
So we're happy to announce that Kramer Manor was accepted in 2025 to be a part of the New Jersey Black Heritage Trail, which was founded in 1922 by Governor Murphy. So we're really happy to be a part of that, especially after the year before, Shady Rest is also landmarked on this Black History Trail. And I mean, it took us a long time to submit that application, a couple of months. We didn't know if we were going to get it because we're not a landmark, it's an area. But they still accepted us into the Black Heritage Trail. So hopefully this year we'll have our marker that we're going to have on Martine Avenue where Scotch, Plains, and Fanwood meet. So look for that coming up. We'll have a big celebration to celebrate the marker of our neighborhood. Next one. Okay, the most recently, Tom, I don't know if Patriots did this with you guys. They had a fundraising available. I don't know if you guys did that. So we're doing the same thing. So we were approached by Somerset Patriots. It's something that I do for all of the individuals who are part of the Historical Commission. They're going to allow us to have a fundraiser for Social Justice Matters and Kramer Manor
for August 1st, and that is the Somerset Patriots and New York Black Yankees Baseball League game on August 1st. So you'll be hearing about that soon. We'll be selling tickets, and we'll all be in one nice section, and it's a really nice night. So we're looking forward to that. That's nice. Okay. And this is the original Kramer Manor District Project team. I just always want to acknowledge everyone. Pam Brooks, she's from SJM, she's up in Massachusetts now. Myself, Kevin, Derek Garrett, Pam Brownstein, she's also SJM board member. And then some of you might know Douglas Lane. Douglas was a key part of our project team as well. Next. Just thanking everyone that has been a part of it. You'll see a long list of names here. And so thank you everyone who's been a part. We wouldn't have done it without all the librarians and everyone who helped us uncover all this history. Also, yes, I have a plug for my son Ryan Jones, who is over here videotaping the night also. Okay, so I know we kind of ran out of time and a little longer than we expected, but any questions?
Is Kramer?
I'm gonna let
Is Kramer Manor in Scotch Plains or Fanwood?
It's
Both.
actually both.
Both.
Oh,
It's both.
If you come down Washington Avenue, four houses from Trenton is still Fanwood. After that fourth house, that's all Scotch Plains.
okay.
But it was redistricted a few years later, right?
yeah.
So initially it was Fanwood
Yeah.
for some time.
Yeah, it got moved. I have a question for
I have a question. Any house that has a mailbox on the curb is in Scotch Plains. If the mailbox is on the porch, it's Fanwood.
Oh, thank you for that. Everybody hear that? I didn't know that. Any other questions?
No, I'm not.
I was a mailman, and another fact is, if it's a three-number address, it's Fanwood. If it's a four-number address, it's Scotch Plains.
I'm wondering, when people started to buy in, was there a corresponding lender institution that might even have helped? I know individually the stories have been that it was a struggle, but people managed. But did they have anybody setting up to assist with even a down payment?
No, not
No.
that I'm aware
No,
of.
that
Remember,
wasn't-
Harry Kramer
that wasn't
accepted
the place.
anything over time. He was very lenient with our family's payments.
Yes.
So remember, it was $250. As Kevin mentioned, sometimes Deacon Green, when he bought his home, he'd give him 5 cents or $1.
They would work out the terms in the basement at the house on Lincoln Avenue.
Thank you.
And when you say these payments, these are just for plots of land? This
They
is
were
not
just
for the
plots,
house? So you were
just
you
plots.
were not buying a house, you were
No,
just
you were buying plots.
land and you had to build your own.
Right.
That's right, just plots. And it got around through word of mouth. So a lot of families came, they
Well,
invited their
well,
other people,
there
their
was a-
cousins.
There was a lot of people that worked in businesses in New York. Like even in New York, they said they would put the ads in for Kramer Manor. You were a police officer that worked in Newark, to this day, they still have a listing of places you can live. Kramer is actually still on there, still listed with them actually. And somebody, a friend, well, one of the neighbors there on Washington, he was a police officer, well, police for the mail company, like a mail, and he said he actually found it from work, found the area.
Were there zoning laws any different for Kramer Manor? Like, I'm in a place now where the houses are close, and when we needed to put a wheelchair accessible ramp in, we had to go through getting variances. Was there any side to that at the time?
I don't
So
believe so.
you gotta remember, back then, they didn't go ask because they were gonna get told no. So back then, they would go and build it. And that's what, you gotta remember, we were paying them money for sewage and water, and that wasn't happening. So they wasn't saying nothing, and we were just doing what we had to do to keep Kramer built up.
I was going to say, what's the nature of the community now? Does it still have that sense of community?
Oh,
or
yeah.
is it turning
It is.
over?
Kramer Manor, our events that we throw out there are fun. And all the Scotch Plains come, a lot of Plainfield, everybody come, and it's just a great gathering. And it reflects the people that live there.
Diverse.
Very diverse.
It is very diverse now, yes. And we still have a lot of
like myself.
But
I grew up in Kramer,
I-
I still live in the same
I
house,
wanted-
as well as others.
I wanted Nora Jones to tell us about the music that used to come from that
You have a
church.
question, Kevin? Kevin?
Yeah, that's my question.
Question?
How many residents are actually living in Kramer Manor in all those homes?
How many?
How many do you think now?
You want to see the hands, raise the hands, please?
No.
No, I want to know how many people are living in Kramer Manor now.
I'm not sure, but I did take account of kids that were my age. Now, I was probably 40-something years old. I was working at Kodak, and I'm sitting there and I counted from Washington Avenue all the way up to the school. I counted 90 kids that were all around the same age. Now, you know, that doesn't, I don't know if that helps you as far as reflecting on how many people are there, but that was the only time I ever took account of everybody here. Yes. Right now? Right now, there are actually 3 houses right near each other.
Oh, Elizabeth left, but I just also want to acknowledge Councilwoman Fanwood, Gina. Thank you very much for coming, Gina Berry.
Jill, over here.
I just want to make a comment, because I went to Scotch. And I graduated in 1944 from Scotch Plains-Fanwood High School. And we met the black kids from Jersey Land at the junior high level. That was the first that we met them.
At Park?
And we, pardon?
Park, you hear that? It was.
No,
Park was Grand was not
And we had 3 in our class. Warren Siegman, Jimmy Johnson, and Bob Franks. And they all graduated with us. And we loved them. The white girls danced with them. We had no problems with them. I'm saying this is sort of a retort to that previous. And we loved each other. We were fine with that. We had nobody on Kramer's house.
Oh, no. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Marie. Tom?
Do you know if a lot of the residents back in those years had memberships at Shady Rest Country Club? Or is that not really known?
I don't know if that's really known. They may have. I do remember hearing a story, going to the Bob Lee story, about what he said about when he was little, they didn't know where to play, and they used to look for the Shady Rest.
Yeah. So the Shady Rest actually was home for a lot of entertainers that did gigs in New York. And on 22, the flagship on 22, that used to be like the club. That was like the spot to go hang out. And so people like Ella Fitzgerald, Count Basie, these people would go there and play, but they would come and they would stay here. They would stay at Shady Rest. They would actually come and sing for boarding. So they would come here, and it's kind of funny because, the place would be packed, right here where we are, they'll be right here performing, like all these artists. If you walk down Shady Rest here and look, you'll see all of the different artists that were here performing and that used to come here.
Duke Ellington,
Yeah,
Elvis Fitzgerald,
yep.
Cab Calloway.
This was the spot.
My name is Sam Madrigal, and I had family that lived on Martin Avenue, the Johnsons.
Yes.
And my older cousins, every time I used to come to visit them from Newark, I used to love it out here. It was different from where I was raised. And I used to beg my grandfather to let me spend the night with him. And my cousins would always argue over who I was going to sleep with, because I was guaranteed to pee on one of them. And then lo and behold, in 1980, we bought our house out here, and it was a perfect environment for our kids. So it was a great move for them.
And Mr. Johnson is one of the ones that built a lot of, and helped build a lot of Kramer Manor. So Mr. Johnson had carpentry skills, and his brother had skills.
Bernie's your Bernie's father, right?
No, Kevin's grandfather.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You can pass the mic down that way for me?
Yeah, back then you couldn't have.
Can you tell me if there are many original homes left or were they torn down?
No, actually, no, there are a few. There are a few original homes. Actually, right there on Washington, there's two. There's one on the corner. And then there's actually the gray one that's empty. Those two are originals. And I live all the way down Washington, right next to Temple Israel. Right there where Temple Israel was, that was a farm. That was a farm. That was somebody's farm there. Where did they grow? I don't know. I wasn't old enough. No, it was a farm. And what's funny is Jerome Williams actually. I remember going down to the farm, and the guy was cool, and he would tell me stories. You hear stories from everybody about how it used to be. They remember this and remember that. But you got to remember, Kramer Manor was a dirt road for a long time. A long time.
I think Brian Cook across from me, his home is still the same brick. He bought it, I think he used to live around here with his aunt, right? That used to be his aunt's house right across from me. So that's the original house too.
So there are a few original houses in Kramer Manor that are still there.
Okay.
Many original families still living.
Absolutely.
There's a couple that's been remodeled.
That's what.
Yeah.
You know they were old.
Yeah, there's some of them. Yes, you're right.
Original, not many, but there are. There's still a few.
There's one right on Roosevelt, right in the middle. Little road on Roosevelt that was remodeled. Second house from the corner from Daniel Place.
Yes.
Between Trenton and Daniel, right in the middle. That was remodeled.
What did you say, Don?
I think there was one also on Trenton Avenue that was remodeled.
Right, the Hadley house.
Hadley, right.
The Hadley house.
The Hadley
So
house.
yeah, he added an addition on, but it looks exactly like the Hadley house. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys know about the recent historic Lego event that was held in the high school. You guys know about that?
Yeah.
So there are actually two Kramer Manor buildings that were part of that also. Because those two still look like the original.
Now, we actually did a briefing in Westfield. We did the same thing in Westfield, they asked us to come and speak. And then there was a question posed to us saying, how come my neighborhood didn't make it like Kramer Manor did? And basically, I answered, I said, well, one thing about Kramer Manor, to this day, there's a sense of community with the people that are still there. Now, where you live, there has to be leaders. Now, Kramer Manor was taking its leadership from Jersey Lake because they had things organized and things together in different groups, and they would start a group, and then they say, okay, now we have another section. So people were working together, and people saw a vision together, and that's not easy to do. That's not easy to do, especially when you got all this other stuff swirling around you. But one thing about Scotch Plains, there's leadership everywhere. That man there, Tom Donatelli, I used to play baseball for him. We won 3 championships playing Little League, and now we still have that relationship to this day. We're still tight. I'm on the board of Shady Rest with him too. So it's something that you gotta have the character of people to keep your area successful.
Yeah, so all I can say is, as a little kid growing up around Kramer, around all my relatives, I used to, they used to have me wash the clothes on the scrub board in the church that we grew up in. It was a family church, and my grandfather, where the park at, my grandfather used to live down the hill. And as we growing up in church, we used to leave church on a school night. We used to get in the house till about 1 o'clock in the morning. from church. That's how long we had church at our church.
But Gary, tell them about nobody is talking about the musicians that came from that church.
Oh, the musicians, we stayed and people would sit outside and you could hear the music all the way down all around the street. And my uncles, my cousins, all of us musicians and singing. I believe we have one of the best choirs around.
Well, you got to remember, some of the people from that church has performed with Shirley Caesar.
Yes.
They recorded records and albums from that church. When we were young on Sundays, us sinners that wasn't in church, we would sit out in front of the church at the park listening to the music. It was that good. It really impressed me.
All right, I think we're at the end. We were supposed to save time for some banana pudding and